Hi, boys and girls. Okay, so for math today, you need to have paper, papel, and a pencil, okay, un lápiz. You need those two things, so stop, go get them, and make sure you have them. During this video, I'm going to say pause, and you're going to need both of those to solve the math today in the middle of the video, so make sure you have those, okay? Now, for our math today, we only have one story problem, one math story, but we're going to be talking about it a lot to understand something about it, okay? So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to read it together, and then you're going to solve it by yourself, okay? That's the first thing we're going to do. We'll read it, and you're going to solve it. So let's read it together. Are we ready? Ready, read. Tina's uncle brought 19 balloons into the classroom. 7 were green, the rest were blue. How many balloons were blue? O en español. El tío de Tina compró 19 globos para el salón. 7 fueron verdes y el resto fueron azules. ¿Cuántos globos fueron azules? Okay, so I want you to stop, pause the video, and solve this. You have to do that first, or else the rest of it doesn't really work. So pause the video and solve it. Okay, since you solved it, I'm going to show you kind of my thinking for it, what I figured out, and then we're going to talk about something else. All right, so you probably also figured out, just like I did, you probably figured out, maybe you did a tape diagram, and the big one was for all the balloons that her uncle brought. So this is for all the balloons, and there were how many? 19. And then there's a smaller piece, and this is for the green balloons. G for green, green. And how many were green? 7. And then we had to figure out how many were blue. So our other box is B for blue, blue. We don't know how many were blue. So I was thinking one way that I could maybe solve it is with a double 10 frame. So I made my double 10 frame, just like maybe you did. And then I knew that there were 19 altogether, 19 balloons that he brought. So I colored in 19 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 of them all together. The other clue that we had is 7 were green. 7 of them were green. So I decided to cross out the 7 that were green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I thought, you know what, I could think how many are left. That might tell me how many are blue. I know that this is 10, so I can just keep counting. 10, 11, 12. 12 of them must be blue. So I'm going to put the 12 right there. We figured out 12 were blue. Now you probably solved it in a different way. Maybe you have an equation to go with it, which is great. But that's just some of my thinking. Don't change your paper. If you don't have this, please don't change it. This is my thinking, and you have your thinking that I want to see. But now, something else that we have to figure out, we're going to look at 3 different equations. There were 3 teachers that made different equations for this problem. 3 different teachers. Do you remember? Of course, you know Maestra Meonio. She made an equation. You know Miss Bowen. She's a first grade teacher. She has an equation. And you also know Maestra Arevalo, first grade teacher. She also has an equation. So we have 3 teachers who have different equations for this. And we're going to look at each of their equations, and we have to decide, does their equation match with the story problem? Does it match? Does their equation go with their story problem? You ready to try? Okay, so Maestra Meonio, the equation that she made to go with our problem, she said 7 plus something equals 19. So I need to think, does that match with the story? 7 plus whatever number that this is equals 19. Does that go with it? You know what? I think it does. I think it does match because I know that right here there are 12, and if we add 7 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it goes all the way up to 19. So if we add this 7 plus the 12, it equals 19. I can also double check it by thinking about, by using my fingers, right? So 7 plus the 12, let's see if it equals 19. Let's start with 12 because that's the bigger number, and then we can count up. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I added 7 to 12. I did 7 plus that unknown number, 12, and I got 19. So now I have a sentence that I need to fill out. This is what you're going to be doing on your own. You're going to do Ms. Bowen and Maestro Arabalos, and you're going to have to write a sentence for each of them. So I'm going to show you what that might look like. The sentence says, I think Maestro Mayonio's, and I have to choose does match or does not match. Does hers match or does not match? And what did we decide? It does match. I think Maestro Mayonio's does match because now I have to finish this. How do I know that it matches? Well, what did we just talk about? I think Maestro Mayonio's does match because there are 19 altogether. Part of them are 7. 7 of them are green, and the other is 12. And when you add 7 plus 12, it gets to 19. Let me write that sentence down. Okay, here's my sentence. Let's read it. It says, I think Maestro Mayonio's does match. It does match because altogether there are 19 balloons. 7 are green and 12 are blue. I know that 7 plus 12 equals 19. So do you see how I took an equation with an unknown in it? I thought about what I already knew about the problem, and then I wrote a sentence, okay? You're going to do the same thing with Ms. Bowen and Maestro Arevalo. So let's first just look at the two equations together, and we're going to read them, and then you're going to take your paper, and you're going to write the sentences, 2 sentences. Maybe it might be 3, like I wrote a little bit longer, and if you need to write long sentences and long words, you can too, or a lot of words, but you have to write something for Ms. Bowen and something for Maestro Arevalo. So let's look at what their equations are. Okay, so Ms. Bowen's equation is 19 minus 7 equals something. So you have to think, does that match with what we know about the math story? Think carefully about it. You also are going to do Maestra Arevalo's, and hers says something, take away 19, equals 7. And you have to think, does that match? Yes, it does, or no, it does not. Okay? You have to think about that, and then write down the sentences. Now I'm going to show you what the sentences can look like. I'm going to put it on a piece of paper so you can see. Okay, now remember, we need a couple of sentences. The first one is Miss Bowen, okay? And we remember that her equation that she came up with, that she thinks maybe goes with the math story, is 19 minus 7 equals something. You have to decide if those match. And so your sentence for her is going to say, I think Miss Bowen's, and you have to put in there, does match or does not match. I think Miss Bowen's something, I think maybe it does match or does not match with the story because, and this is where all of your thinking comes in, I want it to be long. Do you see how I have a couple, and mine were pretty long. I want you to really, really explain your thinking to read it to me. Okay, so that's the first one. And then you need to do Maestra Arevalo's, okay? So hers, let's remember what her equation was. Hers said something minus 19 equals 7, okay? And so her sentence is going to be almost the same as this one, but it's just going to say Maestra Arevalo instead. We'll write, I think maestra Arevalos, and you have to choose, does match or does not match with the story because, and remember, we're going to have a long line here because I want you to really, really explain your thinking. As soon as you are finished with those sentences, you're going to take a picture, and then you're going to read the sentences to me. You don't need to tell me about your math story, solving the math story yourself, unless you want to. But what I really need to know today are these sentences. This is the most important part today, are these sentences, okay? So don't forget, take a picture of them, and then read it to me and post it on Seesaw. Awesome.